Why, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on BogRadio.fm. We have a very special guest on the show today. On his new tour, The Human Condition, We're Still Not There Yet. His hilarious comedy drives home the humor in everyday family life, the ups and downs of marriage, the challenge of raising children, no matter how old they become, and the joys of being a grandparent. He was also nominated as Best Lead Actor in a Feature-Length Film at this year's International Christian Film and Music Festival in Orlando, Florida. For My Seven Grandmas, with no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very funny and talented Jeff Allen. What's up, Jeff?
Nothing. I'm sitting in as you can tell, a beautiful hotel suite. And nothing but the best for me, the Country Inn and Suites, getting ready to work tonight at the Improv. So, in Cary, is it Cary or is it Raleigh? I don't know.
It's actually in Cary, but you're going to be at the Raleigh Improv.
Right. Okay. As long as I got that straight.
As long as you got that straight, Jeff, that's the main
Yes.
thing.
At
The
my
Raleigh
age,
Improv.
At my age, it's a good thing to find. Years ago, I wanted to get a job delivering pizzas, and they weren't going to hire me. They looked at my resume. I had 15 years at comedy clubs, and he goes, "What qualifies you to deliver pizzas?" I said, "Well, I find addresses in towns I don't live in. Imagine how good I could do
Yes.
if in a town that I live in." So yeah, I can find the addresses. So they still didn't hire me. Give you an idea of my
It's
job
going to be
skill
tonight.
set. I can't even deliver pizza. So.
Well, you got to love it. It's going to be tonight in Raleigh, North Carolina, or Cary. The
Yes.
Human Condition Tour rolls on, and it's going to star Jeff Allen tonight at 7 o'clock. You can get your tickets right now. If you just go to jeffallencomedy.com, you can get your tickets. It's called the Human Condition Tour. We're still not there yet. Jeff, what was the motivation for the tour's title?
Well, you got to come up with something. So that's kind of the genesis of it. What are we going to call it?
Yeah.
And I said, well, the last year's was the Are We There Yet? And I told my manager, we're not there yet. I'm still a mess.
Right.
So, yeah. So I've come to the conclusion that this side of heaven, I'm going to just be a continual work in progress. So anyway, it was he said that this is all, it's probably very common, it's the human condition. We're just not there yet, and I think, what did somebody say once, that most human beings spend their entire childhood gathering up things and putting them in a big bag on the back of their neck, all these neuroses things and all this stuff, all this baggage, and then you spend your adult life trying to empty the bag. And the lucky ones try to empty the bag. The unlucky ones, they're on their 9th marriage or whatever, and still can't quite figure out what the problem is, So that's kind of it. It's just it's kind of a play on words. It's the human condition. We're just a work in progress. I want to call it a work in progress, because it's exactly what we are. I am anyway. I've given up on ever becoming a saint. And I don't know about you, but sainthood's not in my future.
No, I think we can go ahead and dispatch with the saint stuff, Jeff. I think if we really read the Bible, we'll understand we fall way short of a lot of those guys in there. Love them to death and use them for motivation, but I'm not the Apostle Peter or Paul.
Nope, not even close.
Not going to fit that job description.
But I will say this,
and Jeff, it's
had
okay.
I seen in person the resurrected Jesus, I might be a little different. I'm just saying.
Well, hey, I give you that. I mean, I think it might be a little bit different, but I can honestly tell you I agree with what you said. Hey, look, just accept the salvation that Christ died for and do the best you can, and we'll try our best not to beat ourselves up and laugh at ourselves. That's why we do comedy shows, because we're pretty funny, Jeff. Yeah, and I think the Lord thinks we're pretty funny.
If I couldn't laugh, man, I would explode. You just hear a poof, and they go, "What happened to Jeff? I don't know. He was
Yeah.
sitting there a minute ago." Yeah.
Well, by the way, folks, if you're hearing this on replay, which you will, you can catch Jeff also. If you can't catch him tonight in Raleigh, you can catch Jeff in Rutherford, New Jersey at Bananas Comedy Club on June 20th and 21st at 7 p.m. and also Levittown, New York at the Governor's Comedy Club on the main
Yeah.
stage at 7. If you want to know more, go to jeffallencomedy.com if you want to catch him on some future tour dates. One of the biggest compliments, Jeff, I think a comedian can get is to perform at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville,
Yes.
Tennessee. And you're going to be there on June 28th. What is it like performing there, Jeff?
It's amazing. I mean, just look at the history. I mean, you walked around the backstage area and you see the pictures of all the people who have graced that stage. And I was able to work it at the Ryman as well. And to think that Elvis was on that stage, Johnny Cash, I mean, the list is I mean, all these iconic performers, and the center stage at the new Opry. Uh, they cut out a floor from the Ryman. They cut out a circle and they put it in the center of the stage at the new Opry. So it's something I thought about. When I was a kid growing up, all the people in our neighborhood were big country music fans, and the Opry was also mentioned as some kind of holy grail place. You go to Nashville from Chicago and you visit the Opry. I never did, but I thought about it as a performer, especially when I moved to Nashville. I thought, man, what a blessing that would be. So I've done it 6, 8 times now, but it's been a number of years
Okay.
since we just haven't been able to hook up a date. I've been pretty busy, and they usually want weekends, and I'm usually gone on weekends. So, but I'm looking forward to it, the 28th.
Man, that's a huge deal right there, Jeff. Like I said, that's one of the biggest compliments I think a comedian can get is to be invited to perform at a place like the Grand Ole
Yeah.
Opry. And there are other award shows out there, big ones where they bring a comedian in to host or just to do some time. And if you get asked to do that, you're pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's again, it's a small group of comics in Nashville that get to perform there. So I am honored. Going to have an entourage. This will be the first time I've done this show where I've had friends reach out and go, "Hey, can you get me backstage?" So I said, "Oh man, I'm going to have an entourage. I'm going to I'm gonna have six people. They probably won't even know I'm there. They'll be walking around looking at everything and just, oh yeah, I forgot we're here to see Jeff." So, but yeah, I got about 6 or 8 friends coming out, so we're going to get them backstage and hang out like I got friends.
Well, you know what, Jeff, you got a ton of friends, and nowadays you got your own podcast going.
Holy cow!
And
Look at
I
that.
wonder, yeah, who gave Jeff Allen a podcast? Jeff, what motivated you to start doing this?
Well, we did a little research, and they came back with there's just not enough podcasts in the United States. So we thought one
Yeah.
more would strike a perfect balance. Actually, Carolyn, I met Carolyn, and I really loved her comedy. She's a recovering Californian. She's just got a dark, twisted point of view, and
Okay.
brand new believer.
Okay.
And she wanted to get off the road because she wants to raise her kid. And I said, I'd love to cut back as well. So let's give this podcast thing a chance, and uh, we'll see where it goes. We'll give it a year or so and see if we can start monetizing. And again, if people don't listen and people don't share, then it's obviously they don't want it. But I see the
Well,
question. Have you talked about my
yeah.
seven grandmas yet? Oh, you saw it, Wendy. Um, yeah, I have seen it. I just saw it. They did a premiere in Minneapolis. I went up with my wife and my manager, and then Candace Kirkpatrick, one of the co-stars, was was there as well, and the director and the producer. Um, we still don't know where it's going to land. They're looking for distribution now, but it won Best
Okay.
Feature at both film festivals that it was entered in, and that's
Okay.
quite an honor. So my first
Well,
acting debut. Uh, I was nominated, but not selected. So they're dead to me as far as that goes. So
yeah.
I mean that
Well,
in a
you know,
Christian
Jeff, I'll
loving
tell you,
way. Yeah,
in a Christian loving way, Jeff.
in a Christian loving
But
way, I mean that. So
I was there at the International Christian Film Festival, and I saw Candace there. I spoke with her, and I
oh
had a
wow,
film that I wrote and directed that was nominated for in the short film category. Didn't win, but I got nominated.
well
But
that's
while I
great.
was there with my wife and family, I said, "Oh man, Jeff's in My Seven Grandmas." And he's nominated for Best Lead Actor, which I thought was hugely impressive. What was the experience like for you, Jeff, in doing that role?
Well, it's interesting because I've done bit parts in movies. You know, when Scott, the writer, reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Have you ever acted?" I took classes for 3 years, I think, scene studies, and I did a couple of bit parts. I told him I can probably deliver my lines and I can find my marks. Uh,
Yeah,
if that's enough for you, then we can go with this. And the role itself, I'm a grandfather, so I played a grandfather. The interesting, funny story. The premise of the movie is my wife of 40 whatever years dies in January. It's Minnesota. You can't bury people in January in Minnesota. So you got to
no,
wait until the ground thaws. It's summer. Anyway, we're at
yeah,
the cemetery. We're going to bury my wife. So you got to work up some form of emotion to, so what's proper. We did like 6 takes. I thought two or three of them were over the top. A couple, might have been less than what was necessary. I don't know. Anyway, we're standing there ready to do 7 takes. And Candace walks over, and I said, I don't think I can bury my dog one more time. And she starts laughing. She goes, Is that what you're using? I said, Yeah, I just see his gray face, and I start tearing up. So anyway,
yeah.
we're getting ready to do the seventh take. They're ready to clap the board, and she leans over and goes, Woof. I said, That's it. I'm done. I can't do it.
Yeah,
So I told the director, I hope you got it in six because I'm not killing one of my kids. So, I bury my dog,
I
and
hear you.
that's emotional enough burying my dog. So that was, but it was 2 weeks on location. Um, and as a stand-up comic, you know this, you get the immediate feedback. And with this, I don't
Yeah.
know, and they're shot out of sequence. So again, my hat's off to the writers and the directors and stuff that put it all together because as Jonick was filming, something would happen. He'd go, "That's okay. We can clean that up. We're going to put this after this scene over here, whatever." And I go, "Holy cow!" To have that vision. I'm sure it's all done before they start filming, but it was still pretty impressive. Candace was a gem. Kate, the girl that played my granddaughter, was really, really good. So I got, when you surround yourself with talented actors, then it's really just reacting to, um, just the hard part for me is listening. My wife will tell you that I have a hard time listening. So if I listened and I reacted, it seemed to work out much better than if I just drifted off and was thinking about golf courses or whatever. But sitting down for
Yeah.
an hour, two, three, whatever it was, and then you go in, you deliver 2 lines, and then you sit down for another 45 minutes. I like stand up. I really do.
Well, you're one of the best in the biz, dude. I mean, I've been following you for years now, and I mean, you are really good at what you do, and there you've got a
So
great following of fans out there, dude. So
thank
there's
you.
no question about that. When you talk about these films, like I had a chance to do a film in 2016 with Jen Gotzin and Tommy Ford from the TV show Martin, and
Oh,
I'm surrounded by some actors that know what they're doing. and there was a scene that required crying. Thank God I didn't have to cry, but I watched Jen Gotson just cry on cue.
Right.
I mean, just utterly amazing how actors are able to do that. And so Candace Kirkpatrick, an excellent actress, spoke very highly of your part in My
Yeah.
Seven Grandmas. And from a comedian standpoint, going over into the acting world, that was a good job, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a different
I think that,
genre. Obviously, you act when you do stand up. It's a character. It's an extension of who you are. And as far as you hope that when they cast you, you fit all the boxes that they need, so
yeah,
you don't have to really step out. And I wasn't going to do dialect. I can't do dialect. I can't. I wasn't going to put on 50 pounds. Like Pacino's done or De Niro's done. That kind
yeah,
of stuff. But as far as what I had to do, especially the scenes with my granddaughter, it was interesting watching the movie. I got teared up a couple times watching it, thinking about my own journey to Christ. And that's really what the movie ultimately is about. It's about this uh, uh, grandfather whose granddaughter puts the Bible in front of him and tries to get him, and he's not interested at all. And then he has a near-death experience. And the line was interesting when he wrote it, that I talked to a pastor and I tell him, when I was laying on the floor and I felt that I was going to die, I got scared to death. And I watched my wife die of cancer for over a year. She never had fear at all of death, because of her faith. And I looked at him and said, I want that. How do I get
yeah,
that? I don't want to be afraid. We all die, but I don't want to be
yeah.
afraid of that. So it was, uh, again, it's easy as a 69-year-old. I was probably 67 at that, but still, I'm certainly looking at my own mortality and what I'm going to leave behind and everything. And um, so, yeah, the faith really, really, really helps with that. I'm not ready to go, but if
Absolutely.
God called me home tomorrow, I'd like to think that I wouldn't go kicking and screaming.
Well, listen, the reality is without Jesus Christ, you can't have a sound mind. You'll never get there without Christ. And he gives us
Right.
the ability to handle everything, and death being one of those things that we don't want to see. But we can take solace and comfort in the fact that we know where we're going is going to be a great place. I want to go
Right.
back to what you said, Jeff, about the podcast being co-hosted by Carolyn Xavier. Tell us a little bit about Carolyn, because she's new to the scene for me.
Yeah, she came out Instagram. She started this character called the Recovering Californian, and she moved to Tennessee, and very funny videos, very funny. And then she did stand up. She's got a 15-year-old son, and she realized that she needed to be there for him, and we met
Yeah,
at Zany's, and I told her I followed her on Instagram. Very funny stuff, and we talked briefly, and then Tammy and I got into kind of a heated discussion about how much I'm traveling and how long I'm going to do what I'm doing, and am I going to die on the road? I don't know about you,
oh,
but
oh my
Bob
God.
Saget's death rocked me. Um, that's my biggest fear.
Very shocking.
Yeah, my biggest fear. That's why I dress in pajamas every night, because I don't want some maid walking on my naked body, my dead naked body. So I told Tam I'm wearing
Yeah,
pajamas every night, on the road. So at least I can do
yeah.
that for the maid. It's bad. It's traumatic enough to find a dead human in your hotel, but a dead
It's
naked,
traumatic enough. Yes.
old man, you can't get that image out of your head, man. There's no way. So I'm
Yeah.
doing it for them. But anyway, we got into a heated discussion about it, and I said, um, I may have enough money to retire. I mean, if I was forced to, we would, we could live comfortably. We'd have to get rid of some things on our lifestyle, but we could do that. So I told her, I said, um, uh, I'd love to stay home. We're working on a sitcom pilot. We're going to probably film in August. And hey, Junie. Uh, yeah. So anyway, if we'll film in Nashville, so that keeps me home. And if the podcast, we can get some traction and get some success with that. It fills the creative void that I would have by retiring. I don't think I'll ever fully retire, but I'm 69, and I looked at Ken Davis. He slowed down at 75. My good friend Jeff Jenna, a comic, has slowed down now. He's 73, I think. So 3 years, 2 years. So what's the foundation? A podcast, if it works and we can get some traction, and really what it turned out was I love doing it. I didn't realize I would love it so much. I look forward to interviewing people, and we're
Okay.
trying to get as many young comics as we can in that are traveling through to Zanies, just to get a different point of view on life. And we've had pastors, we've had so Dave Ramsey's guys, financial guys. We've had psychologists, singers, gospel singers. Joyce Sanders from the Martins came on. So we're trying to find our footing, as you say. Because people always ask,
Okay.
"What's it about?" I don't know. Human interest. We're just trying to, and it's oddly enough, we never shared it as a faith podcast, but it's interesting how people of faith want to talk about their faith, so it's not a problem. And Carolyn's a believer, I'm a believer, so we've had some really nice conversations with people about their faith. But she is a very sharp, well-read, intelligent, and just twisted enough, man. She makes me laugh. She really makes me laugh. So that's a good combination.
Well, Jeff, she's funny. I've listened to your podcast a few times. I think she's very funny, and I'd never heard of her, but she's very funny.
Yeah.
It's a very good podcast, and you guys have great combos. I have a theory, Jeff, that I'd love to share with you. I'd love to
All
hear
right.
your response.
Okay.
Okay, I happen to think that clean comedians slash Christian, if you will, are the funniest comedians in the world. I really believe that. And for whatever reason, well, I think we know what the reason is, but the world loves the secular, the explicit language, and all that stuff. But when will this genre, in your mind, ever reach the preferred status, or is it even possible? I mean, you got Jerry Seinfeld, who got to number one. Steve Martin. I think Steve Martin was clean. I
Oh,
want
very
I want
clean.
to say he was
Yeah.
clean.
Well, Nate
And then
Bargatze's the
you
hottest
had Bill
comic.
Cosby.
Yeah, Nate Bargatze's the hottest comic in the world right now, and Nate's a
You know
believer,
what?
and he's.
I think you could say that.
Oh, I know I
I
can.
think you
I
could
mean, he
say
just
that.
sold out
Uh,
9 shows in
Well,
Europe, in arenas.
but here,
So
well,
that's yeah.
yeah, I didn't think about. I did not know that he extended out that far. Well, how does he compare with Dave Chappelle?
As far as numbers, he
Yeah,
sold out
numbers,
three. He
numbers.
sold out 3 shows at the Bridgestone this December in less than 2 weeks. That's 40,000 tickets in less than 14 days. That's just one venue,
Wow.
and everywhere
Okay.
he goes, I mean, he's doing huge arenas, and he's just packing wherever he goes. And he's doing a movie. He's filming a movie right now down in Atlanta with Mandy Moore, and so
Okay.
yeah, he's right now. We were trying to work a deal with him for our pilot with his Nate Land production company, and it just kind of fell through. They're drinking water through a fire hose right now. Again, there's just so much coming their way that we decided to just look somewhere else. So
Well, I happen to believe that Christian and I forgot about Nate Bargatze. Thank you for bringing him up
yeah,
because he's awesome. Matter of fact, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but outside of Jerry Seinfeld and like I said, Cosby, I don't even know if Bill Cosby has ever done this or Steve Martin. I think Nate Bargatze might be one of the very few clean comedians that's hosted Saturday Night Live. Am I right or wrong about that?
Wow, it's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I haven't
he
watched.
hosted that show.
Yeah, like twice he's hosted.
He hosted that show about, I don't know, maybe at the beginning of the year. And I watch Saturday Night Live occasionally, not nearly as much as I did in the 70s and 80s, but I still
Right.
every now and then watch it. They have some funny people up there. But I said, man, Nate Bargatze is going to host SNL. And I just think that clean comedians are really what people want to see when they go out. And there's so many funny, clean comedians, in my
Right.
opinion, Jeff, that are funnier than Dave Chappelle. No question in my mind about it. But they're not given the space as well as much as
Right.
you know comedians that cuss and whatnot. And I'm not trashing
Yeah.
those guys. I'm just saying clean comedians should get more visibility because I just think there's so many
Yeah.
funny ones, Jeff. I mean,
Well, it's a
honestly,
huge.
dude.
It's a there's a huge market for it, which is obvious. Brian Regan's done pretty
Yeah.
well over the years.
Oh my
He's
gosh, yes.
selling out 3,000 seat places, and it's interesting because when I was working churches pretty regularly, how many pastors bring people to see Brian Regan? You know, they
Yeah.
just yeah they're and I think because of the internet and because of Dry Bar, more and more of us have gotten more exposure. Dry Bar changed my life. It introduced me
Okay.
to tens of millions of people who didn't know I even existed, and that was one of the funniest comments to
Wow.
read on the on the chat lines. Where'd this guy come from? I've been around since
Yeah.
1978, and again, I did New York, I did LA. It just didn't connect. Whatever I was doing didn't connect until Dry Bar came along, and that audience, that platform, I was a perfect fit for. They just wanted clean family, and most of them are married with children. So that's kind of topics that I talk about and cover. And it's interesting when we go out now and get recognized, and if I'm with Tammy, people are more interested talking to her than to me. So I just, I love that. I just, yeah, they shove me aside and they want to talk to Tammy. So I'm happy for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Get out of the way. I want to talk to Tammy.
Yeah. I told her when I did the Fisher Center in Nashville, I told her, if you come out after the show, you'll get a standing O. I mean, I'm telling you, all you got to do is come out and do the Queen thing with the hand, And she said, I'm not doing that. So I said, all right, well, I'm just telling you, if you want some strokes, if you want some pats on the back, all you got to do is exist. You don't have to say a word. Yeah,
That's pretty funny. I love it. I love it.
yeah.
You mentioned something earlier in the show. I don't know if it was before we went on, or I heard you say it somewhere before about something you had said on stage, which was perceived as violent. And
Oh,
I was going to ask I think with the ice pick.
ice pick, yeah.
Okay,
Wasn't perceived as
and it
violent. They
seems like
said it was violent. So it was,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
you see,
yeah.
look, Jeff, here's what I'm getting at. People get too uptight nowadays when they go to a comedy show.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think it happened after COVID. It seemed like this issue with what the comedian is talking about is so offensive. And I'm going, this guy's not even cursing, and it's a joke. Why did you go to the comedy club anyway? You should have continued
Right.
on to Walmart like you had planned.
Well,
I just,
yeah.
what do you think about the condition of comedy today?
Well, my issue was, and I say this, it's the texting because you can't. There's a difference between typing out the words "yeah, right" and saying "yeah, right." Uh,
Yeah,
there's, I mean, without that context and the voice and the tone and this, and you don't know they're being sarcastic, so they take everything literally.
yeah,
I have my
yeah,
youngest son we used to call him Captain Literal. He took everything literally. He didn't get satire. It just, by the time his
yeah, yeah,
brain processed it, it was, Yeah, I remember Tammy saying when he was like 6 or 7, this was a story I used to tell. And he said, "What's for dinner?" And she said, "I'm going to cook dog eyes." And he'd go, "I don't want dog eyes, Mommy." And he'd leave the room. And she sat there laughing. I mean, we didn't change our life for anybody, but he was, I
Yeah.
guess that's probably why he doesn't speak much to us these days. But he took everything literally. And I think that generation, I said, we've raised the most humorless American generations. And I think it's changing. I think people are tired of it. They're tired of the word police. And more people are stepping out and just, ignoring them. But again, I don't, I do what I do. And my goal is not to upset. My goal is not to anger. But if I do, in the course of that, I can't control 6 billion people. I really can't. Move on. Find somebody else that
Yeah.
feeds whatever it is you're looking for. I don't do politics only because I can't keep up because the cycle changes so fast. I had one
Yeah.
bit a few years ago. I wrote. Remember when Chipotle had an issue with salmonella, whatever it was? I don't know. They were making people sick at Chipotle. So I'd open my
Yeah.
show
I
with. I
remember
go,
that.
yeah. So I opened my show with, my wife and I ate at the casino last night. Well, you know it as Chipotle. Is there a bigger gamble than that, folks? And for 3 nights, it got applause. By night 4, no applause, a few laughs. By night 5, nothing. And I go, why would I write material that lasts 3 days? And
Yeah.
that's what politics is. Now, again, you can preach to the choir, you can walk out and say something that's provocative that your people like and they applaud. But the question is, where's the joke? Carlin was brilliant at um, walking that line between preaching and comedy. Just when you'd say, "Oh, come on, climb off the soapbox. I'm tired of the rant." He'd have a joke, and it was like, "Oh, wow, that was great." My favorite line of Carlin's was back when Muhammad Ali was a conscientious objector. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he says, Muhammad Ali, he says, "I can't kill another human being, but I can beat him up." Isn't that a great line? That's just a
Yeah.
great line.
Yeah.
And wherever you
Yeah.
stand on conscientious objecting, today there'd be 9,000 comments for and against, completely missing the point. It was just a joke,
Yeah.
the irony
Yeah.
of,
It's
yeah,
just
I can't kill him, but I'll beat him up. So I, you know, uh, I hope that what I do leaves people in a better mood than when they came in. And based on the emails I get and the comments after the show, because I'll stand out and shake hands, a number of people come into the club in a funky state and just looking for a
yeah.
distraction. And that's what we are, man. We're just distractions. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not going to change your worldview. It'd be nice if I could have more influence on with Christ. Matter of fact, I did a church Sunday. The pastor just texted me. They had 33 people commit to Christ. Now that's world changing
Oh
to
wow.
me. That's changing. I mean, I know what that relationship has done for me in my marriage. So to think that 33 people got on their knees because the Holy Spirit convicted them that day. Again, I'm thinking that their life's going to change. I know that their life's going to change in a
Yeah.
good way. In a good way. And the world tells us that the exact opposite. That if you're a man of faith or whatever, you're stupid, and So I don't even give them any headspace. I just move on. I just read something on Facebook today, and I don't even deal with it anymore. I there's no point in dealing with the negativity. You don't like what I do, then you know I don't understand. You want to ask these guys what is the point of trashing me to me? I mean, is it to change my heart and mind? Or, one guy wrote, "You're not even remotely funny." Okay, well then why are you on my page? I mean, I I only
Yeah,
follow people that make me laugh. Carolyn Xavier was one of those people that made me laugh. I never knew her and never met her, but boy, I'll tell you, her videos were hysterical. And when I finally got a chance to
yeah.
meet her, it was great. And then now we're working together. So God is good.
God is good. And I
Yeah.
think our landscape of sensitivity has grown tremendously. I mean, I can go back to the 70s in prime time between 1972, 76 in particular, when you had Sanford and Son, All in the
Yeah.
Family. You have Archie Bunker and Fred Sanford, who are diametrically opposed but equally racist. And
Right.
they said things that were unbelievable back then, and no one
Yeah.
got mad, Jeff. In
Nope.
fact, we loved it, and
No,
they were
because
both number one.
all our fathers talked that way. Our fathers were
Yeah,
the generation that every stereotypical comment. My father, the stuff. It was so funny. You'll love this story. My father,
yeah.
every time there was a broken down car in Chicago that caused a traffic jam, he would say it was some black guy that didn't get his car fixed. And every time we drove by it, it was some white guy standing under the hood. And my mother would point it out. Oh, look, Jack, he's white. Shut up.
But see,
but
that's the issue,
that's what
Jeff.
I
You
grew up
can't,
with. I was in the
you
back
can't.
seat. I heard it all, and
Yeah,
and then I had black roommates at college from Chicago, and I a comic living with me for a while. That one was eye opening. Teddy Leroy, when he moved in with me, we would walk the streets of Chicago, and people would come out of their houses and yell out all these racial slurs, telling them to get out of their neighborhood. And I would look at Teddy and go,
yeah,
"How often does this happen?" And he says, "Every time I go out in these neighborhoods." And I go, "Holy cow!" That was
yeah,
that opened my eyes up to how deep the hatred was. But the comics that talked about it on stage get roars from the white
yeah,
audiences uh, because people were aware of it. We were surrounded by it all. So Archie Bunker was a lens into a very large swath of the population, and certainly on the white side of the aisle, and then Sanford. I loved. Did you ever hear the story Billy Crystal told about Red Fox in Vegas?
no,
Oh, hysterical.
no.
He had like 15 people in the audience at the Hacienda. He had a standing show there. Anyway, midnight
Oh,
show.
I remember
Yeah,
this. Yeah, I know what you.
yeah.
I remember this, Jeff.
15 people. That'll work for no 15. He leaves. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
it was a different time. It was in America, and I think that, and to me, if you ask me, race generates billions of dollars. So if you can keep stoking the fire and people keep funding your organizations or whatever, but the most of us have moved on. I've moved on. I don't. Uh, Gosh, I can't tell you the last time I was offended by anything anymore. What people have called me, whatever. To do what we do, you got to have a fairly thick skin. Um, and it's funny,
you do. Yeah,
the generations, it's not even millennial anymore. I think millennials have matured enough for the most part. Carolyn's a millennial. My sons are millennials. Uh,
yeah,
but the generation beneath them are just really thin skinned. And if you're looking for hope
yeah,
in the next politician, I pity you. I really do. Um,
yeah. I really think, Jeff, that a comedian, once he starts a joke and he starts to pull back because he doesn't want to, he can feel that it's going to be offensive or people just not going to take it. That's the worst thing a comic can do is to pull back. It's like you got two decisions: either just don't ever tell it again, or if you're going to do it, give it everything you've
right.
got. I saw a
Absolutely.
comedian. Jeff, I saw a comedian. talk in a church, great big black church, and he was talking about stuff. You might see it in a Medea movie, but it was kind of like edgy, and the groans started. He didn't care, Jeff, and those groans started turning into laughter because he
Right.
did not back away from it. He
Right.
dove into it. And I think that's how you attack cancel culture and people that,
Yeah.
want to complain. Just let it rip.
That's it.
Just let it rip.
Again, my goal, and that's what I always ask people who say things. What's your goal? Calling me a nasty name is okay if it makes you feel better, but what's your end game? I mean, if it's to
Yeah.
change my heart and mind,
Yeah.
you're going
Yeah.
about it the wrong way. I don't know anybody that responds to that in a positive way. So
Yeah.
as far as what I write, I mean, I remember when I started talking about Tammy, there were these occasional women that would stand up in the middle of my show drunk and go, "Why don't you talk about men the way you talk about women?" And I'd go, "I'm not talking about men or women. I'm talking about woman and I'm talking about man. I'm talking about me and I'm talking about my wife. And if you take that away from me,
Yeah.
I got no livelihood. So you can't, I'm not even going to allow you to take that away from me. She's the judge on and then if I get on my and again if I'm bothered by something I said, and it's happened, you've probably said some things and you go back to your room and you think, maybe I crossed the line within my marriage, not with you know uh,
Yeah.
the culture itself, but within the context of a loving relationship. I've stepped over the line, but I have a conscience and I have a Holy Spirit, and if it eats at me, I know there's something going on, and then I'll visit the material and I'll go, oh, maybe it was, or I'll pull it back, or I'll smooth it out, or I'll just drop it. But that's between me and my
Yeah.
wife and my conscience. I can't, and then the audience ultimately is the ultimate judge if they laugh, or enough of them laugh. But I can't. There's 6 billion human beings on the planet. I'm not going to worry about each and every one of them. I'm trying to, again, you and I are identical. We're just distractions for an hour, hour and a half. And
Yeah.
hopefully you do your job well enough to where you distract them from their problems and they laugh, because God created laughter. There's no other way. It had to be by design. It's too healing to not have been by
Yeah.
design. There's too many benefits to
Yeah.
laughing for it to not, and if you believe that's an evolutionary process, I think you're foolish, but okay. Some cosmic accident put in us all these endorphins and things that get released, which are painkillers when we laugh. I I don't, I don't know how that happened. I don't see cavemen laughing a lot, but then again, I wasn't a caveman.
Well,
so,
well,
so
I think, Jeff, the key to stand up comedy for anybody that's going to be a detractor is to be able to win them over with laughter. Like, the key is to be really funny. At the end of the day, people really don't care. You're talking about endorphins.
right,
People really don't care as long as you can make them genuinely laugh.
right,
And that's really the end game goal, and I think people kind of, I remember I was in college once in my 20s at a comedy show, and the comedian was bombing, and it was a big room, and I'm like, now, I'm kind of like the heckler. I'm like cracking everybody up around me.
yeah,
Everybody's just losing it, and this girl who was at a table across from me, oh, she just thought I was the man. So her boyfriend is getting angry
oh,
with me. So the guys at my table are ready to make sure that guy, they're ready. Nah, forget the guys at my table. The whole restaurant in that area was ready to make sure that guy didn't come near me. Let
yeah,
that guy keep talking. It's a kind of a crazy example, but my point is, if you're funny, people don't care.
right. And also,
You just
again,
gotta be funny.
it's a heart thing. If there's no
Yeah,
malice behind your words, and that's what I look at, is do hurt, and they are can be uh,
yeah,
like an assault. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but I look at whatever said with, is there any malice with intent? And 99.9% of what you hear for comedy today, there's no
There's
malicious
no malice.
intent. Not at
No.
all, man. It's just like, hey, lighten up, let's laugh, and if it's not your cup of tea, move on. I mean, that's the
That's
beauty of
it.
the internet. You can just with a wipe of the thumb, you can move on to the next one. And you don't have to destroy people's lives along the way. And again, I
No.
can't
No,
imagine
you don't.
what what wounds these people carry that feel the need to destroy people's lives and livelihoods. It's not enough to just ignore them. I got to bring you down, and I got to make
Yeah.
sure that nobody else has the same choice I had to move on or laugh or whatever.
Well, you know what, Jeff? I number one, I think you're doing a great job. You're 69, you look great, and you're as funny as ever. And hey, look, dude, and I hope you keep doing it. Let me just say this to you, Jeff.
Yeah,
Comedy is ageless. I watched Don Rickles before he passed away kill in a
yeah.
wheelchair.
Oh, really?
I think
I
Don
saw him in
Rickles is
Vegas. He was probably 70 when I saw him. And gosh, it's just, and all the stuff that you're supposedly not being able to do today. But again, there was no malice in that man's heart. None. It was just good natured
none,
poking and ribbing
none.
and a style that you probably won't see much of anymore because you're not allowed to pick on anything, overtly,
Well, Jeff, but you know what I noticed though? I love that you mentioned that because I love Don Rickles and I watched him. He just died, I think, last year. So Don
Yeah,
Rickles was doing comedy in millennial audiences, the modern
yeah,
day, and he did not change his style, and he was able to get it over the plate. I mean,
right.
there was a couple of groans here and there. You think a groan is going to stop Don Rickles? No, sir. He hit the
Yeah,
gas, and
yeah,
it was hilarious.
yeah,
So it worked. I mean, you get that goes back to the example I was giving before. Don't apologize for what you believe is funny and it's not coming from a bad
right.
place.
Right. And
You can
again,
win anybody
the
over.
audience is the ultimate judge whether they laugh or not. But again, we're the writer, the producer, the director, and the performer of what we do. Uh, and as
Yeah.
long as I enjoy the process, I got a dry bar special I'm taping this August. It's my sixth one, and this is the first one that I'm
Okay.
really having to work hard to come up with 25 minutes. I'm uh, I'm scraping the barrel of stuff that I did years ago, and just to see if I can update it and move it. But this is fun. It's a fun. I love the process of stand-up comedy. I just love taking a
Yeah.
premise and building it out and making a story out of it, and then watching it grow. I did some stuff at Zany's last Monday. They have a new material Monday that they do. So I just go up and read out of a notebook. And I told the audience, I go, 6 months from now, when you see that on Dry Bar, you're going to go, wow, it was so much better 6 months later. you know? I mean, it's, yeah. So
Well, look,
again, as long as I'm
yeah.
enjoying the process, I'm slowing down as far as the travel. I want to spend a lot more time with my wife and my grandchildren, which I can, a week or two here, a week or two there. I just took a month off. First time in my career, I voluntarily blocked a month, and that was too much. By week three and a
Yeah.
half, Tammy and I were looking at each other. When you going on the road? She's like, yeah. She's like, oh, this is too much. So, yeah, we're good at 2 week stretches. We're really good.
Comedy, Jeff, has to be the most therapeutic occupation in the world
Yeah,
because, as the word of God says in Proverbs, laughter is a medicine. It's like a
yeah,
medicine. So, I mean, we are healing ourselves, Jeff, literally every time we take that stage. It's
yeah,
our life sustenance, man, and it's from God. And like I said, Rickles dude was in his late 90s doing stand
yeah.
up in a
If he was in a
wheelchair. Okay,
wheelchair doing it, man, God bless him. God bless him. I read where George. I didn't read this. Somebody told me this about George Burns. At the
George
end of
Burns
his
was
life,
old.
he was at the end of his life. He was catatonic in the dressing room, just sitting there staring at nothing. And they would come and they
Wow.
would stand him up and they'd say, "It's time, Mr. Burns." And they'd walk him to the curtain. The curtain would open and he'd come alive for that 45 minutes. And he'd go back and
Oh
sit
my
down.
gosh, that's amazing.
And this is anecdotal. I don't know if it's true or not, but whoever told me that was witness of it and said that he just loved. It gave him life. Probably extended his life. And same with Rickles. I know when I worked with Gaither, a lot of those singers had retired, and then he started those homecoming videos. And I guarantee you, it
Yeah,
extended their lives. Guarantee it.
yeah.
Being able to sing what they
I
love.
guarantee you. I totally agree with that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Well, God's already said it in His Word, Jeff.
yeah,
Laughter's like a medicine. And when we think about clean comedians, and I'm not trying to throw shade on guys that use profanity. I'm not trying to do that. But
yeah,
what I am saying is there's something deeper and cleaner when you're not being offensive. You're just kind of like telling your truth without going for the low hanging fruit.
right.
It takes more intellect for a comedian to tell or write jokes without the low hanging fruit. It takes more intellect. And I just think it's lazy for guys that go for that. Yeah, you're already funny, dude. You didn't really have to throw those expletives in there. You're already funny. And so
Right.
you're kind of robbing yourself of the highest ceiling that you could reach
Well, it's not
when
only
you
that,
do
you're
that.
you're
And
narrowing your you're narrowing your audience. You know, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Years ago, I remember telling somebody, one of the club chains, I can't remember which one, but if they rated their shows,
yeah.
um, they would they would include a large segment of the population that stopped going to comedy clubs just because they don't want to hear dirty material. So if you rate your shows,
Yeah.
and they got used to trusting your rating system, PG, G, whatever, then they would come out, they would enjoy a meal and would enjoy comedy. But they told me that they didn't care, um, you know, if they
Wow.
isolated or. I just don't understand it from a business point of view, And now they've realized. I know all the clubs have realized that we have a place. I'll go in at 4 or 5 o'clock on a Saturday to the Improvs, and then they'll have a dirtier show at 7 or 8 o'clock. But at least there's an option, and it's rare that they put two clean guys back to back, which makes sense. Why dilute the pool? I guess I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I just right now, as long as I love what I'm doing and the travel isn't killing me, I can get to the gym. Uh, if I didn't work out, the road would kill me. Um, it is a
Well,
grind.
you should work out, Jeff. You're at
Yeah,
the age now where a lot of people our age, have put up the white flag in their 40s, dude. And it's hard
yeah,
once you start climbing up there in age and you haven't been taking or at least paying attention to your well-being.
yeah,
That's where people get majorly ill. And
yeah.
so God
It's
bless
hard.
you for, paying attention, to
Yeah, I have
yourself
to.
because it's very
Otherwise,
important.
like I said, the road would I would die out here, and some poor maid would find me and. And I don't mind
Well,
traumatizing
look,
my wife. My wife has seen everything, so that's not a bad thing. But beyond that, I can't imagine some poor maid coming in, and so I sleep under the covers with my pajamas on. So
well, Jeff, listen, man, with that, we're going to get out of here. I know you got a show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we're
yeah,
talking with Jeff Allen on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on bogradio.fm. Jeff appears tonight at 7 o'clock in Cary, North Carolina at the Raleigh Improv.
all
If you
right,
want to get tickets, you still have time. Go to jeffallencomedy.com. And my wife and I are going to be there tonight, Jeff. So I'm
oh man,
glad that
it's
I had a
great.
chance to kind of put your show out there for people as we get ready for that. So before we get out of here, Jeff, any advice for young comedians out there?
Yeah, just be true to yourself. That's the old Shakespeare thing. To thine own self be true. Don't try to be anybody but yourself, and stick with it. If you love what you do, if the goal is to be famous or to make a lot of money, then it always comes back to doing quality work. You get good at
At the
what you
end of the
do.
day.
You get good at what you do. All that other stuff will come. And if you're a Christian or if you're a man of faith or a woman of faith, you honor God, and I think in the end He'll honor you. Um, and it doesn't necessarily add up to like more money or more fame or whatever. What God wants you to use. I'm more proud of the 33 people who committed their lives to Christ. I mean that's I know what that commitment did for me and what it did for my marriage. So to hear that 33 men and women committed their life to Christ, those changes are gonna come in their lives. I'll never see them again, but those seeds have been planted, and the Holy Spirit will work through these people, and so that means more to me than anything else. Uh, it's it, it's an eternal consequence. Um, but yeah, so be true to yourself, uh, and honor God with what you do. And I think that just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and enjoy the again, it's hard to do, especially if you've been at it for 10, 15 years and you're not seeing any fruits of that. Um, Look, I started in 1978, and I didn't really connect on a national level until I was 62 or 3 years old. So um,
Yeah.
I just enjoyed what I did, and I hope it shows. I
I
hope people come to my shows and they go, "Wow, this guy really likes what he does."
Well, Jeff Allen tonight in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Raleigh Improv, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
JeffAllenComedy.com is the place to go to get your tickets. Once again, Jeff, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking
Thank
to
you,
you.
Maurice.
If you're coming in at the end of this, folks, it'll be on Spotify this evening, and you can hear this interview where all major podcasts are heard on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show. And Jeff, hang out for a minute or two after we get off. I want to ask you something. In the
Okay.
meantime, may the peace of Jesus Christ continue to be with you and your family. God bless you.